The skies of New Genesis wept fire the day Doomsday rose again. Buried beneath the molten crust of a forgotten war world, his body once torn apart by the Source Wall's final collapse. Doomsday had been presumed lost to eternity, but death was a lie to this monster. Evolution itself was his weapon, and now it had made him more than a brute force of nature. It had made him purposeful. For centuries, Doomsday had been a storm of instinct, a beast who moved without mind, who destroyed because destruction was coded into his bones. He was the unrelenting hand of entropy. But something changed the moment his ruined corpse drifted too close to Apokolips. Caught in the gravitational pull of Darkseid's world, Doomsday plummeted into its infernal core. Instead of being obliterated by its planetary furnaces, he absorbed them. The Omega radiation that coursed through the planet's veins infected him, fused with his cellular memory. The Parademon guards who stumbled upon his resting place were not killed, they were unmade, erased from time by the raw chaos that now surrounded his reawakened form. And in that moment, something terrible happened. Doomsday opened his eyes and understood. A fragment of the Omega Force, latent and wild, had latched onto him. Unlike others who tried to harness it through will or ritual, Doomsday didn't resist it. He let it flood him. His body didn't break, it adapted. What emerged from that pit was no longer just the beast who killed Superman. It was something far more horrifying. A Doomsday who could think. Whispers spread across the cosmos. On Thanagar, an entire moon disappeared after a grey titan punched through its core. On Oa, the Guardians saw a silhouette tear through the boundaries of reality like paper. A God-eater, they called him. A destroyer of balance. On Earth, Superman stared into the stars with dread. He had felt it, the return. But Doomsday wasn't seeking Kal-El this time. He was headed elsewhere. His target was the anti-life equation. In the catacombs beneath Apokolips, ancient writings foretold a beast born of death, who would seek the equation not to enslave minds, but to erase free will itself from existence. Not as a ruler, not as a god, but as a walking extinction event. If Doomsday ever touched the equation, reality would crumble under his evolved wrath. And yet, the throne of Apokolips stood unshaken. Darkseid, seated upon his obsidian dais, watched the slow approach of the monstrosity with silent contempt. Flames licked the foot of his seat. Galaxies trembled in orbit. But his crimson eyes narrowed not with fear, but with curiosity. An abomination forged in Kryptonian. Shadow dares to seek the divine truth. I alone am destined to wield, he muttered. Darkseid trembled at his master's side. My lord, this is no longer the creature we knew. He's changed. The Omega Pulse recognizes him. The core itself shifted when he passed. Shall I alert the Furies? Darkseid rose, his cape dragging streaks of fire through the stone. No, let the gods watch. Let the universe bear witness. This monster thinks himself evolved? He raised a hand. The air fractured. Then I shall show him what it means to gaze into the face of true divinity. Across the starways, Doomsday tore through the final layers of reality that surrounded Apokolips like protective veils. The sky darkened, the stars vanished, and then he landed like a comet crashing into judgment. Ash and blood rain filled the air as armies of parademons swarmed. They died before they could scream. The fire pits erupted with joy, sensing the death that walked their surface. He spoke not a word. His mind was primitive still, but focused. One thought pulsed through every cell in his body. The equation must be mine. Above, on the throne tower, Darkseid stood alone, his arms behind his back, a storm swirling around his figure. I see you, beast, and I grant you this single truth. You are not worthy of the anti-life equation. Doomsday looked up, Omega energy crackling across his fists, and in that instant, the gods knew this was no longer about control, no longer about conquest. This was about supremacy. The unstoppable force had come for the immovable object, and only one would remain. The ground beneath Apokolips cracked open like an egg as Doomsday lunged forward, his fists howling with energy, warped by Omega radiation. This wasn't a monster driven by rage. This was an evolved predator who had tasted the divine and now craved dominion. Darkseid descended from his throne like a shadow made flesh, slow and measured. He did not rush. He never rushed. The cosmos bent around him. Every step carried the weight of eternity. Then it began. The first clash was apocalyptic. Doomsday's strike shattered a continent of obsidian. Darkseid countered with a backhand that bent space itself. Time fractured, creating echoes of the fight in parallel dimensions. In one, Doomsday was already dead. In another, he was king. But here, in the real moment, they were gods at war. Doomsday roared and slammed his fist into Darkseid's chest, sending him flying through the mountain-sized statues of long-dead tyrants. Lava gushed upward like geysers. The fire pits howled in joy. Parademons circled like carrion birds, unwilling to get close. The female furies watched from afar. None dared interfere. Darkseid emerged from the rubble, brushing molten rock off his shoulders. "You've grown, but not enough." His Omega beams ignited. They zigzagged through time and space, impossible to dodge, until Doomsday did. Not with instinct, but calculation. He twisted his body at the precise molecular frequency needed to redirect the beams into the sky, where they tore a moon in half. Darkseid narrowed his eyes. Impressive. Then Doomsday struck again, faster than light. 1,000 punches in under a second. Each hit dented the surface of Apokolips. Each one infused with Omega-adapted muscle memory. The monster had learned. Each time he died, he evolved. And now he was facing a god, not as prey, but as an equal. For the first time in eons, Darkseid staggered. Enraged, he reached out and gripped Doomsday by the throat. With a thought, he summoned the raw anti-life, the very concept of despair, and poured it into the beast's mind. "Feel it," he growled. "The crushing truth that existence has no meaning, that you are nothing." Doomsday trembled. His roars ceased. He dropped to his knees. His eyes flickered, visions of every time he'd died, every scream he'd made without voice, every life he had ended. He saw Superman's broken corpse, Lex Luthor's screams, the Guardians retreating, the void of the Source Wall. Then something snapped. He looked up. He laughed. The sound was broken, monstrous and wrong, but it was laughter. The anti-life had no effect. Doomsday had never known life to begin with. What could you take from a creature who had nothing to lose? With a howl that split the crust of Apokolips, Doomsday surged to his feet and bit into Darkseid's arm, tearing through even godflesh. Blood blacker than the void spilled, burning through mountains. Darkseid screamed, his rage igniting suns in distant space. But the beast wasn't done. With one hand, he slammed Darkseid through the core of Apokolips, straight into the heart of the Omega Forge. It exploded. Energy older than time consumed them both. For minutes, maybe hours, no one saw what happened. Then from the flames, a figure rose. At first they thought it was Darkseid, but it was not. It was Doomsday, charred, broken, but breathing. His body still steamed with Omega fire, his shoulders bearing cracks in the shape of the anti-life equation's sigils. But his eyes burned red. He held something in his hand, the shattered chest plate of Darkseid ripped from his smoking corpse. Darkseid was gone, not erased, defeated. The throne of Apokolips cracked in two. The sky bled, and across the stars gods trembled, because now they knew the monster had killed the god. Doomsday had claimed Apokolips,